Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, May 16th, 2014. Well, numerous wildfires are going on out in California. Lots of wildfires and lots of destructions. In just one Southern California county alone, 10,000 acres have been burned up. Some of the lifelong residents out there say they have never, this is a direct quote, never seen it like this before, ever. And you know what this really is? This is an effect of something else, a side effect of something else, and it's extreme drought in the western part of the United States. It's unbelievable. It's never really gone away. It got a little better. They got a little rain, but I printed out this drought map right here. Take a look at that. Now, on the eastern side of the state, all the way over to, like Missouri, down here, it's pretty good, but look at the west and southwest. I mean, this is 10 big U.S. states. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas and the red is severe. The yellow looking is bad, but the brown is severe. The light brown, the beige, that's severe. So it's severe or extreme or exceptional from Texas all the way out to California, going all the way up to Oregon. I mean, it's unbelievable. And look at these big food growing areas here. Big food growing areas here. Whether it's livestock, pigs, cattle, fruits, vegetables. That is unbelievable. That is, and it will not go away. And keep this in mind. We're still in mid-spring. I mean, summer doesn't start officially until the end of June. If we don't get rain out in the western United States, and plenty of it, I mean, what is June, July, August going to render? And what kind of effect do you think that's going to have on food prices that are already going up? Be on guard, my friends. I think food inflation will really take off this year if there isn't rain in the western part of the United States. And it won't just be the U.S. feeling it. It'll be the world feeling more and more, ratcheting up food inflation, especially on the back of all this money printing and the inflation we've already seen. You expect that, this extreme drought situation in the western part of the United States, or severe drought or higher in the western part of the United States, is really going to turbocharge food prices negatively. Well, the civil war in Ukraine is just going at it. They're just killing each other right and left, and there is no resolution or end to this in sight. And here's something that'll really, make it even worse, and that East Ukraine claims independence. East Ukraine is claiming independence, and, the U.S. says it's all the Russians' fault that this upheaval's going on. The Russians say, hey, you started this coup, it's all your fault. It's just no end in sight. Now, will this Ukrainian crisis turn into a global shooting war between, the superpowers of the U.S. and Russia? Who knows? It could. But it's already turning into a knockdown, drag-out financial war between the United States and Russia. Remember Jim Rogers was on USA Today, not long ago, and I was asking him about, hey, this Ukrainian situation and these sanctions, what do you think? And he says, I don't think sanctions will hurt Russia. As a matter of fact, I think they'll backfire and they could hurt the U.S. Well, ding, 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 Mr. Rogers, you are correct, sir. Sanctions against Russia take toll on U.S. companies. And the companies they name here in the USA Today, John Deere, McDonald's, MasterCard. John Deere has plants over there. This couldn't come at a worse time, not just for the U.S., but globally. You remember what the growth was in the first quarter of this year? 0.1%. And that's their phony numbers that don't really account for inflation. Before that, their phony numbers said the growth was 2.6% in the fourth quarter. That's down from 2.6 to 0.1%. Big banks like J.P. Morgan say, well, it's really down, 0.9%. Retail sales are off. I had Paul Craig Roberts on, who was former Assistant Treasury Secretary, father of Reaganomics, PhD in economics. He says, the next quarter, I don't see how they can make that go positive. I can't see how it's not going to be a negative number. The sanctions couldn't come at a worse time, not just for the U.S., but globally. And then you have, French companies, the French saying that, well, we're going to make warships for Russia. We've got an order in. We're not going to, no, we're going to deliver those warships. You got, oil and gas deals out of the UK. You've got Germany. They don't want sanctions. They got 6,000 companies doing business in Russia. And then you have Russia holding de-dollarizing meetings to de-dollarize the world. They held it with Iran and China, and they have big pipeline deals that they've announced with China that they're going to do yuan and euro. And, this is bad. And as I said, couldn't come at a worse time financially, not just for the U.S., but for the entire globe. The latest policy blunder by the Obama administration is the release of, wait for it, 36,000 illegal immigrants who were convicted of crimes such as rape, murder, domestic violence, drunken driving, child molestation. Yep, I said convicted. And once again, the Obama administration, they do some crazy activity like this, and they're not talking. And they told everybody else not to talk. This is supposed to be the most transparent administration ever. Their words, not mine. Obama's words, not mine. And don't expect your buddies in the mainstream media to get to the bottom of this, because I don't, from my vantage point, I don't think they see this as much of a story. At least until one of their loved ones gets run into by one of these convicted, drunk drivers, or they get murdered, or their kid gets molested, or somebody gets raped by one of these convicted felons who are immigrants that were let go. Nothing wrong with immigrants. But these people are convicted of felonious activities, including murder and rape. Outrageous. And the New York Times is wondering, we're losing our journalism edge. Really? Well, I wonder why that would be. I don't normally do this, but this is appropriate. I'm going to talk about how the newspaper basically did a book review on stress test. This is Tim Geithner. He's the former Treasury Secretary. He's got a book out about stress testing, about the financial crisis. I mean, this is like a bank robber writing a book about, hey, I robbed this bank and I shot the place up, and then I ran and the cops chased me? Can you believe that? That was so stressful. It's really quite unbelievable that Tim Geithner got the kind of review he got in this book, as if people forget that he was or the USA Today in this article forgot he was the former Fed chief in New York, the Fed president of the New York Bank, head of the New York Fed. He's the regulator who was supposed to be regulating the big New York banks, in the early 2000s and up until he became Treasury Secretary later on. He was the guy who was supposed to be reining in the big bankers. And hey, he didn't. And here in the newspaper, it says, listen to this quote out of the newspaper. The crisis that began in 2007 was unprecedented in many ways, and Geithner and other policymakers were uncertain what was happening and what the response would be. The New York Fed allowed the banks to leverage up 40 to 50 to 1. They turned a blind eye to massive fraud, massive loan application fraud, liar loans. They knew they were packaging the liar loans into securities and then getting them rated AAA. Now these liar loans that were AAA, equal to a treasury, they're being bought back by the Federal Reserve to this day, now down to $20 billion a month, these loans. It's unbelievable. And that's what caused the crisis, right? The subprime, the liar loans, as Max Kaiser said. It was like saying, here's a diamond, and there's a bucket of glass. Bing! Now, there's a bucket of diamonds. It's unbelievable. And the Fed was supposed to be the regulator, and they didn't. Geithner also was quoted in this article by saying, I never found an effective way to explain to the public what we were doing and why. Hey, Mr. Geithner, let me take a shot at that. What you were doing and why. You were bailing out massive, reckless fraud. And then you were basically covering your banker buddies with printed dollars. You were covering these guys when what you should have been doing was referring them to the Justice Department for massive fraudulent activities that destroyed our country. You said it. Well, we won the battle, but we destroyed the country. He also said that quote in this article. You should be referring these top bankers, of course, but they're your banker buddies, referring them for criminal prosecutions. Not a single big banker was criminally prosecuted. So why the nice spin job for this? Oh, he saved us. Oh, he had such a terrible time. He saved us. So why the softball questions and lionizing Tim Geithner by USA Today? Well, it couldn't be because Gannett, the parent company of USA Today, has banking and shareholder relationships with big banks that caused this problem, like Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan. Oh, no, that would not affect their reporting. No, it would not affect their reporting. And as I said, not a single big banker has gone to jail. And you got to wonder why in the world is the USDA now? The USDA, another department in the U.S. government, they got an order in for machine guns. 40 caliber machine guns. They got an order in for that. Does that make you think that, Mr. Geithner fixed everything and saved the economy? Or does that make you think the people in charge think we're headed for some dark places here in America because of the economy? And speaking of fraud and details of fraud, this is another little headline. I'll see if I can get this to focus in here. Just hold on. It says, here we go. Let me hold it here. Official. Let me focus it up here. Come on. Yeah. Madoff fraud stretched far and wide. You're finding out more and more details of this massive $60 billion, I've heard 65, 40, 60, whatever, massive fraud. And it's global. The official in this article says that, about the only places that it didn't affect was the Gobi Desert and the polar ice caps. Massive fraud. And you know what? His office could not have pulled this off. Bernie Madoff and his cohorts, the people who have been convicted, couldn't have pulled this off without help. And he did have help. J.P. Morgan, for example. Now, there's been plenty of fraud cases and fraudulent laundering money for drug cartels and terrorists and LIBOR, rate rigging and fraud in the housing market. Lots of it. But this is an easy one. J.P. Morgan paid $2.5 billion in restitution and fines to reportedly avoid criminal charges. How can you just avoid criminal charges by paying a fine? Madoff didn't get to pay a fine to avoid criminal charges. He didn't say, oh, yeah, you caught me. Here's your money back. Let me pay you a few bucks and let me go on my way. But that's what's going on. And this is the reason why I bring up Bernie Madoff. Yeah, it's small in the grand scheme of things and the hundreds of trillions of dollars of fraud by LIBOR that nobody's prosecuting. Pay some fines. Billions of dollars in laundering money for, drug cartels and terrorists. Pay some fines. But Bernie Madoff, nobody went to jail over this. Nobody. Nobody went to jail over this. And this is what I want you to leave you with. And I thought about this today when I was thinking about what I'm going to do in my weekly news wrap-up, and then I put it all together. But this is what I want to leave you with. Massive fraud. Listen, massive fraud. Blew the system up. Just massive fraud. It wasn't just a mistake. Or Macaulay Culkin, like Geithner wants to be like, Macaulay Culkin, we didn't know what was happening. Right? Massive fraud is what blew the system up. And massive fraud, whether it's, LIBOR or rate rigging or stock market rigging, what they call a logarithmic trading, which is just front-running trades, with 1 million trades a second or whatever. The mortgage fraud. Now they're lowering FICO scores again. Massive fraud is what got us into this, and massive fraud is what's propping up the global economy. And in my days as an investigative reporter, I was in local TV, I was at a couple of networks. In my days, I learned one thing about frauds. Frauds end quickly. I mean, look at Bernie Madoff. One day he was a fat cat, boom. The next day he was, I've got to tell you that my whole operation is just a big fraudulent scheme, a Ponzi scheme. It's kind of, what comes to mind is that line in Forrest Gump, where all these life changes happened to Forrest Gump. And, there was a moment when it changed, and the line is, and then one day it was over, just like that. Well, one of these days this is going to be over. Just like that. Be prepared. I want to thank everybody for supporting USAID Watchdog. The most important thing, comments. I mean, I learn stuff from the people who comment on the site. They put in links. They have nice analysis. I'm like, oh, smart people. Thank you for using the donations button. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Have a nice weekend.